There's no scarcity. There's really an abundance of pleasure. And once we recognize that we could bring it into our lives at any moment, when we experience them with gratitude, then it nourishes both our bodies and our souls.
Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality. If you are new here, welcome, sibling souls. My name is Kat. I am a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant, and I am joined today by Bracha Goetz, who is a prolific children's book writer and spiritual coach and guide who is on a personal, passionate mission to help children's souls shine. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and your conversation. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Really happy to be with you. Thank you.
Excellent. Can you start off just by sharing with everybody a little bit about your journey and how you got to writing children's books and helping people just have a shinier experience in life?
Okay. I love that. A shinier experience in life. That's great. I would say my journey began at age 12. I think because the body starts changing, adolescence, and my consciousness just expanded. And suddenly I started wondering what life was all about. Like, younger than that, it didn't matter to me. And suddenly it mattered. And I began my search. I searched in so many different ways, in different religions, I would say social action, experimenting with all kinds of things. I started just studying all kinds of wisdom, wanting to know the purpose of life. And that's how I ended up going to Harvard, just because I started learning about everything and feeling like I just wanted to know. After I finally was blessed to find the wisdom that I was looking for in life and understand the purpose of life, I wanted to share that with children as young as possible, because that's what was missing from my life. So that's what I've been able to do, write books in a simple and joyful way about the deepest subjects in life.
I love that so much, and I really respect that work. I think that there is a no better thing that we can pass on to the next generation of young souls, young spiritual minds, up and coming, than the tools and things that we've gained, the things that we discovered in our 40s or 50s, that took us a lifetime to figure out how to deprogram some of the socializations. And man, if we can empower children at a younger age to live that shinier life, to be happier, like, we're really passing on something of tremendous value, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Exactly. Giving children the tools, the basic tools to live a joyful life as early in life as possible. I mean, yeah, it's very simple. And my mind works like that because when I was a child, the world was filled with vivid colors. And then as I began to not trust life and not trust myself, it's like the world was drained gray. And then the colors came
Absolutely.
back. That's what happened. So I'm back in that place of curiosity and able to see the awesomeness of life. So it's that childlike state I can share again with other children. Yeah,
Absolutely. Like, it would be so much easier if they never lost it to begin with.
right.
Like, just
Exactly.
continue to live in that full color spectrum.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit, like, how as adults can we reclaim that energy for ourselves, having gone to gray, as you put it, at some point in life.
Yeah. What affected me was I learned about the pleasure ladder. It's a universal tool. It's an ancient mystical tool, but um, because the 5 levels on the pleasure ladder, well, they correspond to our 5 fingers. It's like it's showing us that we have within our power the ability to find joy at any moment. We have that ability right here in our hands. And it also corresponds to the 5 levels of the human soul.
Mhm.
The lowest level of the soul is the part that's attached to the body. And when we nourish that part of the soul, it it begins to shine more fully. That's how it works. But how do you have long-term lasting pleasure? And that's by climbing the pleasure ladder. There's no scarcity. There's really an abundance of pleasure. And once we recognize that we could bring it into our lives at any moment, oh my goodness, it changes our whole perspective. So the lowest level are all the natural pleasures in this world, like the natural food, spending time in nature, moving our bodies, dancing, swimming, gardening, music, all these natural pleasures, when we experience them with gratitude, then it nourishes both our bodies and our souls. So that's
Mm-hmm.
just the lowest level of pleasure. And you know how many gifts we have in our lives this very moment. We have so many we can't count them. So this is what happens when we begin to open our eyes mindfully to the abundance of blessings in our life. And that's just on the lowest level of pleasure. Do you want me to go up the ladder? Yeah.
This is your spiritual tea time, so you can go all the way
Yay!
up the ladder, all the way over the top of the ladder.
Okay, here I go. Here I go. So the next level up is love. Now, love does not sound empowering. It's dependent on somebody else, we think, right? But this is the empowering view of it. Okay, the ancient mystical definition here of love is focusing on the virtues of another. What do you appreciate about someone else's spirit in this world? So we can bring that into our lives at any moment without anybody being present, even in prison. And let's say an addiction is like a prison. When you're in addiction, you feel disconnected, you feel estrangement, lonely, cut off. So by bringing in the gratitude, we're bringing in the connection. And each level up brings more connection and more lasting pleasure. So with love, like even if a person is in prison, they could bring like a grandmother that once did a kindness for them into their heart, and they are uplifted with inspiration to become a better person. The person doesn't have to be there, and it doesn't even have to be a person. I mean, it could be a pet, whatever spirit you are bringing into your life that you appreciate. This gives us more lasting pleasure. Going up the ladder, the third level is doing something good and meaningful. Like we've heard these things before, like if a person's depressed or anxious, like eat healthy food or exercise or volunteer. But now we understand that it's because it's a spiritual need. When we have an addiction, we are trying to fill our lives with externalities desperately, but that it never fills the hole because it's a spiritual hole. It's not a physical hole. So it just gets the hole deeper and more desperate. So when we do something good and meaningful, and we do it with gratitude, then it fills us up instantaneously. So the next level up, the second highest level is surprising. It's called creativity. It's giving life, putting our lives into the world too, putting our uniquely beautiful light into the world. When we are in a state of creativity, we don't feel like eating or sleeping. We are in a zone where we're beyond time. Time is passing, we're not aware. It's such a high that we get on when we're being creative. And each level up, you'll notice, is more and more emulating the source of all our energy. So when we are being creative with gratitude, there's also no ego involved. We're not worried about flopping or failing, because the energy is just flowing through us, and we are bringing it into the world. We're just naturally bringing it in without the blockages. So the highest level of all is transcendence. That is when we see that we are all connected. We're all connected to the same source energy that's flowing throughout all of us, between us. We're giving to the plants are giving to us. This is happening all the time. And it's those moments when we transcend our own limitations. We make that first crack in a bad habit, and then we are taking off those blockages and letting our light shine out into the world. Sometimes we need therapeutic assistance. We need maybe somebody like you to help a person to remove those blockages so they could see that light within them shining forth again. That's transcendence. It's what you feel
Yeah.
under a starry, starry sky at night. And it's also when you make that first crack and you see who you really are, that the soul of you, that the invisible part of you that transcends everything. So to climb this pleasure ladder, there's only one price to pay, and that is gratitude. It's
Yeah.
just a joyful price to pay, and that's how we get on any rung of the pleasure ladder. And that's what really changed my life, and that's what filled me up. So when I feel like overeating now, I recognize, oh, you want more pleasure in your life. It's not like you have to finish the whole container of ice cream or the whole bag of potato chips anymore. And that leaves you feeling emptier than the bag does afterwards, you know. So you
Yeah.
can you can remember now the abundance of ways that you can bring pleasure into your life.
Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about gratitude, and I wanted to point out, like, okay, so your vibe, your energy, like, I can feel the joy in you just talking about these things, right? Like, you plainly have a very healthy relationship with your gratitude. You have a healthy relationship with the energy, and I can really feel the actual vibration of gratitude, which really is just a joy and a love of things. Um,
Exactly.
and I wanted to ask you a little bit about how we as adults can work on healing our relationship with gratitude because for some people, gratitude was wielded at them like a weapon as a child. Like, you should just be grateful to have this. Or so there can be a vibration of unworthiness or a kind of trauma surrounding gratitude. And I find also when I'm working with people one on one that people tend to think of gratitude in it's almost can be a limiting capacity. Like, I should just be grateful for what I have. If I want more, if I have bigger dreams than this, then I'm not being grateful. And
Ah,
so I find when working with a lot of adults that there are actually some childhood traumas and some limiting beliefs surrounding gratitude for a lot of people. How can we work with the concept to heal that and get to this beautiful vibration of joy and love that's really just appreciation without the wounding, without the unworthiness or the limiting beliefs?
I I love your question, Kat, so much. I want to say you are the first person I've given hundreds of presentations, and you are the first person to say this to me, this question. It is so valuable, and and I am sure other people were thinking it, but they didn't have the bravery to articulate it like you. So I am so grateful to you for saying this question. Yes, people, if you are forced into gratitude, if you're forced into anything, anything could be made miserable. So, I mean, I think about how, I'm Jewish, and how the Jewish people were, like during the Holocaust, were forced to dance their most joyous songs in front of the Nazis, and anything can become torture. Anything. Even gratitude, if it
Yeah.
is manipulated, if it's used in a negative way to make a person feel unworthy. So yes, that is a blockage that people have to remove in order for their souls to be able to shine again. Um, I, I, I want to give this example. this is an example. Oh my goodness, it's not, there we go. This is like, I'm shining this flashlight. This is our soul. Our soul is really always shining, but what happens is like we go through trauma, like we go through a person say, you better be thankful for what you got, and that it makes us, we feel unworthy again. We feel, oh, I'm not even a grateful person. What kind of a low life am I? And we put these coverings over our soul. All day long we go through this. Our bucket's getting emptied, and this is how we feel. So we need people like you to help to remove the coverings so we could see that we're shining again as we always were. It never goes away, this light within us, although it feels like it does. And the other thing we need to do is continue to nourish our souls. Nourish our souls by, like you said, recognizing the good in our lives, because there is so much good in our lives right this very moment. Anybody watching this podcast now has so many blessings. I mean, they could hear, they could see, they can move. They're breathing. There's so much to be grateful for. We tend to take things for granted, and then we miss out on a lot of joy in our life. So it's really a process of self-love and giving ourselves self-compassion. The more that we just experiment with practicing gratitude, even if it feels uncomfortable, especially if you were forced to be grateful as a child in a phony kind of way, like you didn't really feel it, or even if you're forced to hug your aunt or kiss your aunt and you didn't want to. None of these things are pleasant, at all. So being forced to do things, it's not flowing right up from your soul. To experiment with letting things flow right up. I describe
Absolutely.
it like when you travel on a road with a car, for instance, that's never been traveled on. It's very gravelly, it's hard to do it. But once you put the grooves in the road, it gets easier and easier. So we're creating neural pathways with the neuroplasticity in our brains to make our minds become more joyfully grateful. Yeah.
You know what it makes me think of? Like an example is just bringing it back to that child, like children, and think about like, okay, as an adult, if you were to give a child a present for their birthday or for Christmas, like there's a difference between a child being like, oh, thank you know what I mean, thanking you for the present, and when that child actually opens the present and is like tearing into it and is excited and running around the
Yes.
living room, and
Beautiful.
that is gratitude, right? And
Beautiful.
it doesn't even need to be spoken because it's implicit in the energy. When a child
Beautiful.
opens a present that they love and they're running around joyful and want to tear it open right now and forget everybody else, like that joy is the actual
Yes.
vibration of gratitude.
Yes.
The gratitude that you're having to just say to somebody because it's an expectation or a societal expectation,
Yes.
that's not what gratitude actually is. And I think as
Yes.
adults, we can look at the child situation and know for sure which one we'd rather have, like which
Yes.
reaction we'd rather have from a child, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's an easy way to think about it. Like you're in the attitude of gratitude if that running around with joy is what you're feeling and not
Yes.
necessarily the other one.
Yes, exactly. And you could run around with an orange. You know what I mean? It's like the most basic things start to bring you joy when you look at the world this new way. Exactly. Things you
Yeah.
just were taking for granted. Like I feel that the the pandemic was a huge push forward spiritually globally, because overnight people began to not take for granted being with other people, hugs, getting together outside, getting together with groups of people, and their health and breathing. All these really basic things we suddenly started to appreciate that we might not have been doing before. And so we're moving forward, because really what I've learned is this is our whole purpose for being here, to enjoy this amazing garden. Like, what does a parent want for their children? They want their children to experience the greatest pleasure possible in life.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it. That's it. That's our whole purpose and our whole role here, to experience this life with pleasure, with gratitude, with joy. But we've made things a lot more complicated.
I think it can be helpful too to kind of look at the trauma situation and the way our parents talk to us and the way gratitude was being wielded and kind of understand that that had more to do with a parent's lack feeling and not being necessarily able to provide everything the child wanted and not
Yeah.
necessarily the unworthiness of the child. So
Yes.
the vibe and the anger of that really had more to do with how our parents were expected to provide for us, and when it wasn't what we wanted or it wasn't enough, it was like an unworthiness feeling for the parent, and it never
Yes.
really had anything to do with us as children at all.
Yes. Yes. It comes from a place of insecurity, if you like, need
Yeah.
that appreciation, but also, one of my newest books for children took me 30 years to write. It's called Don't Read This Book. It's about the inner critic, which really, where do we get the inner critic from? Mainly from our parents or how we were brought up. So all day long, we have a voice. Every one of us has a voice inside of us getting us to focus on what we're lacking. From morning till night, it's getting us to focus on what we're missing. It's trying to get us to be miserable. So every person thinks, oh, I'm the only one feeling this. But when you recognize and you let children know, this is so natural. This is what we are all feeling. We're all hearing this voice, putting us down, telling us we need that to be happy. We're missing that. You're lacking this. When we recognize that, we take the power away from that voice. It's amazing. Again, it happens right away. As you recognize that voice is trying to make you miserable, you gain the power back, and then you could focus on what you already have, not what you're missing in life. So this voice, why did it take me 30 years to write this book? Because I had the title, I had most of the book written, but I didn't have the last piece of wisdom, which is this, that voice is it's like a barbell. It's heavy to lift. We got to push it off of us. And that's how we gain our gratitude muscles. All of us have it. We all have to push against that force that's weighing us down, that inner critic, push against it and come to a place of gratitude. Now, you also mentioned it doesn't mean that you can't go for your dreams. Because the amazing thing that happens with gratitude, it really is the law of attraction. This is how it works.
Hmm.
The more we recognize all the blessings in our life, the more our life is filled with blessings. It's just what happens. And it doesn't mean that there are not tons of challenges, but the challenges even transform into blessings once we develop that mindset. That's the amazing thing that happens.
And I think the interesting thing about that inner voice, because you're right, everyone has that inner voice. And most of us do, as we grow up, it starts to say things to us that are really our interpretations of other people's behavior. It doesn't have anything to do with what their inner voice is saying. And I think that there is a way to strengthen yourself or to work with yourself to have that inner voice can also be a friend to you. It can also be supportive. It can also be translating downloads from your angels and guides and your support network on the other side. That inner voice is, I think it's there to be, it's there to be a friend and a coach, but it
Exactly.
gets out of control when we spend more time focusing on what we think other people are thinking rather than channeling for ourselves inner wisdom and love. So
Exactly.
that inner
It
voice gets focused more on the 3D.
Yes, it is our personal trainer. It says it knows just what our weaknesses are. It knows how to develop us exactly, each person. It works with our own muscles. That is how it. And at the end of the book, what I recognize is just what you said. the book is called Don't Read This Book because it's going to don't read this book or you're going to learn all my tricks and then you'll be able to outsmart me. But at the end of the book, it says, of course, I really wanted you to read this book and I knew you would if I said don't read this book, then you'd want to read it. So the truth is, I really am your friend. Just like you say, I really want to help you become a better person. I'm just there to give you these challenges that will help you. I'm not out to get you, which is how I felt about life during the gray years. That life was out to get me, that I couldn't trust in life, that I had to take control because I couldn't trust this world and I couldn't trust myself. And eating disorder behaviors, addictions are us trying to gain control, to gain a sense of pleasure in our lives because we don't really trust that that's what this world is all about.
Yeah, and again, it's a socialization. It's not hard to see how like I think we tend to beat the inner voice tends to beat up on us for feeling bad. It's like a messed up cycle where we know we're supposed to feel better about things, but because we don't, then we're beating up on ourselves for not feeling better when, you know what I
Oh,
mean? And
yeah.
it becomes a
Yes.
cycle.
Oh, yes. We could play that game back, too. Like you're saying, oh, now I'm miserable because I'm not feeling grateful. So you go, okay,
Yeah.
it goes on all the time. And like I say, it gets you, you know why, how people like have relapses and like, they'll say, oh, now I just ate 20 cookies. I'm so miserable. I'll just eat 20 more. It doesn't matter. And you go, okay, I had 20 cookies. I'm grateful I didn't have 200 cookies. I had 200 cookies. I'm grateful I didn't have 2,000 cookies. You could play the same game back. Every trick that it has, you could
Yeah.
just play it back. And, so I'm miserable now that I'm not being grateful. Okay, I'm going to be grateful that I'm not
Hmm.
miserable this second, just this 1 second. I mean, you just play it back and you just have fun with it. Or like, yeah, it's once you understand the tricks, you get the power back to be able to just fill your life with the loving compassion you may not have gotten as a child, but now you can give it to yourself.
And I do think there is a way for us to help. I mean, I think everything starts with awareness of it. Like you can, if you're having problems with your gratitude, and here's a good example because again, when I'm talking to people individually, like if you're when I'm talking, I'm feeling into people's energy. Like people sound like you when they're talking about their hopes and dreams and what they're excited about and the energy is skyrocketing and then it'll be like but I'm grateful for what I have now and I really feel if this is all I ever have it would be fine too and I'm like but plainly you want more and I can feel your energy is excited about the more and they're like oh no I'm grateful I promise and it's like they're beating up on themselves for being what I mean and that's not
Yes,
what gratitude is that energy that you had when you were talking about the more that you wanted, that is your gratitude. That's you being grateful for the
beautiful,
opportunities in the future and looking forward to life. That
beautiful,
is what
beautiful.
gratitude is, right? Like when you start to feel your energy going like, "Oh, but I'm grateful and this is really fine what I have now." And that's that the energy is starting to tank when you get that way. So it's really about feeling into the energy of how you use the word gratitude.
That's great. And I do believe in the right now, there is so much more bliss and ecstasy that a person can find in their lives right now. Just incorporating what
Hmm.
their hopes and dreams are, we can bring it into the now. Like eh, guidelines that I follow now, I make blessings before I eat, after I eat, even after going to the bathroom. This is like, to me, one of my favorite blessings because you don't take it for granted. All the pipes are
No, I love
working.
that.
It's it,
No, I'm serious. I think I actually
yeah.
like the first video I ever put out on YouTube was about gratitude, and I was talking about I noticed that there was something off with my vibe on gratitude when I felt more joy and more pure enjoyment after my morning BM, because it's that pure feeling of relief and just, you know what I mean? than I was trying to work with forcing myself to feel grateful for things I didn't really feel grateful for. And so again, you can feel the difference in the energy, and there is a
Yeah.
lot just in your average everyday daily experience
Yes.
that feels good, that is a blessing, that just the sensations are tremendous feeling to be here. So
Yes, yes, exactly. There's this little story to imagine. There's a man on the top of a building. He's ready to jump off, and a woman sees him from across the way, and she says, "Don't jump, whatever you do." He goes, "Why not? There's no point in me living any longer." And he says, "Why should I live?" And she says, "Well, what if you were blind your whole life and now you just were able to see for the first time? Would you still jump?" And he goes, "Of course not." And she says, "Well, you were blind. Open your eyes. You got up here to the top of this building. You can see, you can hear me. You have so many things to be grateful for. I know that your life is filled with a ton of problems, but open your eyes and see the abundance of things that you do have to be grateful for right now." And I think that's every single one of us. I definitely went through a time when I didn't want to live any longer. And sometimes we go through
yeah.
that every single day. Every person goes through moments.
Mhm.
We can all open our eyes wider and see so many blessings that we didn't recognize before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I confess completely, I've been there at points in my life too. But I was always blessed that like my abilities kicked in when I was a kid too, about 12 years old. And so when I would have those thoughts, my voices would come in, and it was always like, what a waste of the opportunity. It's like you're just gonna come back here, and then you're just gonna come back, and it's like
Uh-huh.
you may as well love what you're doing. Like you may as well love what
Yes.
you're doing now. You may as well enjoy the experience, right? And it was never
Yes.
in a judgy way. It was never in a mean way, but it was
Yes.
always like, oh, oh, but there was so much for you to do here. Like what a waste that would be, you know?
Beautiful.
And that was always the vibe and the feeling that I got off of it in those moments. So
Exactly. Thank God you're here doing it. Thank God you're here helping people. Yes.
yeah, and getting to meet so many awesome people who are also helping people and connecting with people all over the world, who are here to help
Yes.
spread light for people.
Yes. Yes. And of
Yeah, it really
course,
is a tremendous blessing.
yeah, it helps our souls to shine when we help other souls to shine. We all know that. We see that. So, yeah, it's one of the greatest joys there is.
And in that light of spreading joy, do you want to let people know real fast where they can find you? If you have a website or a listing of your books somewhere for their kids, like
Yeah.
let people know where they can find you real fast.
Thank you so much. My children have made this wonderful website. It's called Growing Impact Publications because they just want to keep growing the impact. And really, we want to
Absolutely.
just spread joy all over the world. I speak globally and I love it. And we just want to keep helping people as early in life as possible to live more joyfully, to have the tools, or play catch up when we get older. Either way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a wonderful resource for people who are hoping to find ways to incorporate spiritual knowings and stuff for young children and give them those tools earlier in life. We will link that in the description. You guys can follow the link if you're interested in checking that out. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do. Appreciate your time. And we will see you guys next time on spirituality.